All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm here to talk about a topic that has been pretty prevalent in popular culture, and yet with the amount of focus it gets, I don't think people have really analyzed it properly enough. So, what is this topic that you ask? It's something that's entirely relevant to you, me, and our souls. Vampires. So, first on the agenda, what is a vampire? Well, according to myth and legend, it's a folkloric creature that lives by feeding off the life force of others. It doesn't necessarily have to be human, doesn't even have to be dead. So there could be vampires among us. That's why this session is so important. Now then, so we all know what a vampire is. Let's go about the history of a vampire. Where did vampires come from? People have had legends of vampires forever, since the Roman times, since even the Greeks, and also even Hebrew culture. They all have their own legends of vampiric creatures. And they've all kind of synthesized into what we recognize now as the Western vampire. And this Western vampire was born in the early 1800s by a doctor. The doctor of Lord Byron wrote a novel about vampires, famous literature, and he invented, kind of defined the vampire as a rich, suave gentleman who flitted among high society, picking prey from beautiful women or poor streetgoers. And then Bram Stoker really brought vampires to the forefront when he introduced Count Dracula, powerful, charismatic, unwell known, but yet eternal and somehow desirable character. And this is when vampires became so popular and so well known, and yet so unknown, so feared, that people began to hunt vampires in their towns to put stakes through other people. So we need to be able to identify a vampire. How do I find a vampire? So there's a couple big... Oh, Sandy.
Do they sparkle in the sunlight?
We'll get there, actually. That is a great question. So the first thing is pale. Our vampires are definitely pretty pale. It depends on the particular breed of vampire, but most vampires are not are not damaged by the sun, but they do prefer night activity. So they tend to be pretty pale just because they don't go out during the day.
So for Africans or Asians, they don't have vampires.
Well, it's curious you bring that up. Actually, it's kind of like slowly dosing yourself with a poison. They build an immunity, and so you have to have other traits to identify vampires from the Asian and African cultures, and we'll get to some of those right now. So the next trait you're going to want to look out for is that they have big teeth, big fangs. So if they're gonna bite you, they're gonna need those fangs. So look out for. Look out for vampires. And so there'll be the canines, and they'll be a little bit longer than normal, and they'll be bared especially when the vampire is feeling aggressive. So that's how you'll know you're in danger.
What are canines?
The canines are these teeth right here. They're your front on the side. They're a little bit pointed. They should be pointed. That's okay. You're okay. I'm okay. If you're sticking back the lower lip, we're in trouble. So after we've got canines, abnormally large canines. The next trait is whether or not they've got wings. If who you're looking at is pale, has big teeth, and has wings, you're definitely looking at a vampire. So now that we've established you're looking at a vampire, what do you do? How do I deal with the situation? This could be an emergency. So the first thing is look around. If you're in your house, you're all good. You have to invite them into your house. Don't invite them into your house and you'll be safe from a vampire. If you're not in your house, you have to resort to a couple of emergency measures. Claire.
Why can't they just walk into your house?
Well, it's actually, it has to do with how vampires interact with this realm, so to speak, and that a vampire needs permission because they don't have a soul of their own. They don't have any place to call their own home. And so when you have a home, that's something that they can't take from you unless you invite them in. There's actually a lot of conflict on this about why vampires. No, a lot of scripture varies on how vampires can and cannot act in these places. So if you're not in your house, the next best defense is garlic, a cross, and melted steel from a cross, preferably in a 12-gauge shotgun. If you apply these things in this order, you should be able to take down even the strongest vampires. If none of these things work, you should run to consecrated ground, cross, holy water, or appeal to their servants. Consecrated ground. So one of the things about vampires is that they don't have a soul in the sense that people do. And so if you go to a place that is recognized as being of salvation for the souls, such as a church, synagogue, temple of any sort, then the vampires have trouble dealing with all of the energy there, and that's where you'll be safe.
All right.